Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Brett. I am the director of the Charleston Jewish Film Festival, and this is Sunny Neighborg. Sunny?
Hello from Savannah.
She is the Savannah Jewish Federation Community Impact Coordinator, and we give you a warm welcome to today's program. Many thanks for joining us today, and I hope that you will join us for our remaining film, Shared Legacies, in this virtual Spring 2021 series. Details for pre-registration for the next program will be in the chat and on the Charleston Jewish Film Festival Facebook page, or you can always email Sunny or me, and our email addresses will also be in the chat. This year, our virtual film festival is a joint effort between Charleston and Savannah. In Charleston, we are under the auspices of the we were under the umbrella of the College of Charleston Yastik Arnold Jewish Studies program with generous funding from the Charleston JCC Foundation, and in Savannah with generous funding from Savannah's Friends of the Festival. Many thanks to all of our sponsors and donors that are here today. Today's films come to us from the Sam Spiegel Film School in Jerusalem. And by the way, Nir Bergman, the director of our last film, Here We Are, studied at the Sam Spiegel School, and he continues to teach there. Many other famous Israeli filmmakers have studied there as well. All right, so now I would like to turn the program over to our student intern, Caroline Schneider, and she will continue. Please keep putting your questions in the chat. I see that they're still all up there. And I know we had a great discussion in our breakout room, so we're anxious to hear what everybody else has to say. So Caroline?
All right, so I think we'll start, but let's introduce our filmmakers first. Nir and Noah, whichever one of you wants to go first and introduce yourself, and maybe talk a little bit about like where did you come up with the idea for your film, the process of creating the screenplays, some of your creative process, if you want to discuss a bit of that. Whichever one of you would like to start.
I'll start. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. So Lookout is my graduation film from Sam Spiegel. I graduated a while ago, 7 years ago almost. And the film is partly based on my experiences from the army. I wasn't a lookout soldier. It's not what I did, but I did served as a soldier in some kind of operation room, and the experience of waiting for something to happen just so something exciting will change my boring routine was like part of my daily life. But happily for me, nothing terrible ever happened to me as a soldier. But I was curious to explore this feeling of dealing for the first time with something so big and difficult as a soldier. What else?
Like what was your process for writing the screenplay? And maybe if you want to like take one of your favorite scenes from the movie and deconstruct and examine that a little closer.
So I was writing the screenplay maybe a year, I think it was a year after I lost my mother. I lost her while I was a student in film school, and my mother was a puppeteer. Oh, so the whole like puppet thing in the film comes from her, and it was very important to me to like I really wanted to tell the story of dealing with unexpected death and kind of feeling responsible for it without really have any way to affect it, but it was really close to the time she died, so I kind of took those feelings and put it on a very different scenario that I was also curious to explore, as I mentioned before, and And I think while I was writing, it was like the main process was like to mix those two very different worlds, like my mother's lost and puppeteering and the army, which was very different experience that I wanted to combine. And in the film, it was, I think, like, I can maybe talk a little bit about all the scenes with the puppets, which was like, I didn't know how it's gonna work while I was directing it. I wasn't sure that it will make any sense to see a soldier puppeteering. I thought like it may look very weird, but somehow it managed to be coherent because I casted like the Batel, the actress. She was a student in a theater school that practiced puppeteering, so it was very natural for her, and there was something about the character that made it very natural eventually.
All right, well, thank you. And now let's talk with Nir.
Yeah, hello. The same question?
Yeah, the same questions, like how did you come up with the idea?
Okay.
What was the process for writing it? And do you have a favorite scene you want to break down in the film?
Okay.
And then we'll get to some of the questions in the chat after we get through this.
Well, I don't know exactly how it sort of came up, but I was writing basically two scripts. One of them was about a breakup of a couple, and I wanted to explore the idea of after the relationship ends, how people sort of create their own narratives and their own ideas of what the relationship was. And that was the basic premise of the first script. And while I was writing this script, in Spiegel, the school that we know and I went to, you're doing everything, like you're filming and you're writing, but you're also producing to your friends and casting and other stuff. So while I was writing this script, I was also casting another film for a good friend of mine, another student. And I started to write and think about another idea about an actor sort of coming into this situation. And the two scripts sort of came closer and closer and closer until they became one. And there was just this moment I remember when I just figured out it's like it should be one script, not two separate ones. And if I'm talking about the film, I don't know if I have a favorite scene, but I can tell you that the scene that I think was the most, that we worked on the most and was, like Noah said, like I didn't know how it will turn out, is basically like this sort of fight scene in the end, where we wanted we wanted it to feel like there's sort of all of the other actors are sort of like symbols behind the woman who is the other woman that he dated. So he has sort of his ex-girlfriend and sort of his other versions of him looking at him while he's sort of in this in the lowest moment in the film. And it was very, very hard to choreograph and make it work because it's basically a one shot. And I think when we started to shoot it, I like Noah felt like I didn't know if it will make sense and will basically work. So this is like the scene that I most remember, like feeling extremely anxious while we're doing it. Yeah.
All right, and we have a question in the chat from Mary Cool asking you, is there a significance behind all of the striped shirts? Like, was that just a choice or is there a significance behind the striped?
Yeah, it's funny because the film had a lot of versions while we were cutting it, editing it, and we had, it was much longer when we started. and there was a very detailed explanation about the striped shirt. Basically, he was always wearing those shirts, so she asked the actors who came in to wear striped shirts, so when they are filming the auditions, she could see them with a similar wardrobe that he had. And so, but without the explanation, it sort of became this very weird, surrealistic, almost like absurd element that everyone like looks like him, not just physically, but also like the stuff that the clothes that are wearing. And it worked better without an explanation. It became this almost surreal element to the whole situation. And of course, it gives it this sort of weird texture and color to the whole film.
All right. We now have a question for Noah. And that is, Noah, how did you pick the music for Lookout? Like, how did you come up with, I guess, like the score for it, we'll say?
Well, I didn't pick it. I worked with a musician. His name is Ashel Goldschmidt. And it was like, I love writing, working on the music for the film. I'm not writing it, but it's like as close as I'm getting to writing music because I'm not a musician. But I think the idea was to find things that are also theatrical and magical, but also dark in a way, and it kind of escalates through the film from something more magical to something to more dark feeling as the film goes. Yeah, so I think that's about the score.
Right. Question for both of you was, how involved were you in the casting of each of your films?
I was very much involved in the casting.
Extremely involved.
Extremely involved, as involved as it gets. I worked with I had a casting director, and we worked together. And of course, the biggest challenge was to find Timi, the lead actress. And as I told before, I eventually found her in a film. It's called in a school called the School of Visual Theater, which is actually like one floor above Sam Spiegel. It's like in the same building, but one floor above us. And in the auditions, I actually checked. The puppeteering was part of the auditions, and she did it perfectly. And there's something in her eyes that is so amazing that I think I actually didn't. I think I kind of missed it in the audition, but when I put her in this frame of like looking straight into the camera, it all kind of connected. And another fun thing about the casting is that the girl that's acting her commander, the one that tells her what to do in the operation room, she's my friend. She was actually a lookout, and she really helped me with all the research. And I knew that I need someone that knows how it really works on set. And I was happy she agreed to do it, and she's like kind of acting herself.
For us, like Noah, of course, I was very much part of the casting process. But it was a very big challenge because the film is basically about casting. And first of all, we had to find the main character that was played by an actor called Shahar. And after we cast him, we sort of had to find similar actors who could play variations on him, on the way he acts and on the way he looks, and play with it. And it was pretty much a grueling process because it was very, very difficult to find someone who sort of can pull it off, the two dimensions of the dramatic and the comedic elements. But it was like one of the most rewarding and fun part of the process was the casting, because it was very, it felt like we're sort of making the movie because the movie is about casting. So it felt like, in a way, like a meta commentary on the film itself while we were casting.
All right. Another question for Noah from Tina Smith. Noah, how accurate were the living conditions for the people in the military? How did that differ from, say, a college dorm?
Well, I don't know, because we don't have, we have college dorms, but it's not the same as in the States. But it's funny because I always say that like the army experience in Israel is very similar to the college experience in the US, and it's like, and there's something, and it's like kind of the same experience, except from the fact that we're dealing with people's lives, and the film is kind of about it. So I think it's a lot. It's like less fancy, I guess, and the bathrooms are shared. There are no like private bathroom for the rooms, and of course it's like separate for boys and girls. Like they say in the film that she's like shouting like there's a guy in the dorms, and actually I asked the army's help for the shooting of the film, and the reason they refused, like I did the film without any help from the army, and the reason they refused is because you see in the film like a boy, the guy and the girl in the bed together, and that was like the reason they refused to help, because it's against army's rules. A thing that's obviously happened in reality all the time, that guys going into a girl's room and then vice versa. Yeah, so.
All right, questions for both of you. How did you get interested in filming and directing? And what would you say are some of your filmmaking influences? Like, is there a particular director style of film that you feel like really influences your work and got you interested?
I got into film, I guess, I don't know, I've been writing my whole life, and and in high school I studied film, and it was very natural for me, I think, to go to film school after I finished with the army. I think I felt like I found a medium that I can really express myself the most. And influences, I can say Michel Gondry is a director I really love. Andrea Arnold, and what else? And Greta Gerwig lately. And yeah, I always like everything that is both, and Noah Baumbach is one of my favorite directors. Like everything that is both comic yet very emotional is something that I love. Yeah.
Very similar. I've been writing since from a very young age, and I did a lot of theater since I was a very young child, and in high school, and before that I really got into filmmaking. So for me, like no, it was pretty natural, although when I came to film school I found it very hard suddenly. I don't know why, but when I got into the film school I suddenly felt like became like a very big challenge for me to express myself. And especially in this film, I think it's clear, like Charlie Kaufman influence, all the doubles and doppelgangers, and the way people are sort of, their characters are mirrors for each other, which is a thing that I really really fascinates me. And I've got to say, very similar to Noah with influences. I really like Paul Thomas Anderson, but also Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig, which are great. Yeah, for me, I always look for a sort of, when I'm writing or thinking about something, it's always trying to find this line between something that is funny and committing and tragic and real. And this line, I really like to, when I write, when I feel it's working is when I'm sort of on this line, and I sometimes fall into the comedy and sometimes fall into the tragedy. So yeah.
All right. And for the last question we have, like, what projects are you working on now? What are you doing professionally at the moment? What do you have going on right now?
What do I have professionally going on? I have, I'm working on a screenplay for my feature film, for my first feature film. But it's I'm writing right now. But I also work for TV. That's what I do for a living. I write and direct TV series for teens that it's now currently, like, we are now in production, and they're working on some new TV dramas for adults, and it's in the writing stage right now. Yeah, that's it.
I'm writing a television series for a while now. It's a long process, and also started to work on a feature film. And my sort of day job is I'm an editor. I work at a news channel in Israel as an editor and a director and a cinematographer. And I also do a lot of lectures about cinema, about film. So yeah.
All right. I think, unless we have any other questions, I think that covers it. Thank you so much for everyone coming.
Thank you very much.
We're just going to unmute everybody now. If you have any final comments for Noah and Nir, you're unmuted and you can just shout them out. And I, for one, love the movie, and I loved hearing you talk about everything. And I think that in 10 years, we'll be saying, I'll have the same program, except I'll saying, what were the directors that influenced you? And we'll be talking about you too in that, well, maybe not 10 years, let's say 3 to 5 years. I didn't mean to go that far into the future. Any comments on the movies for Noah and Nir before we wrap it up today?
Thank you so much. The movies were wonderful, and we really enjoyed your insightful comments on the process. It was very helpful sometimes to hear what you were thinking as you were making the film, but they were both quite wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us.
The chat before you leave, I have my email address and Sunny's email address and how to sign up for the program on Tuesday. Again, thanks to everyone who made this happen, and I wish you a good afternoon in the United States and a good evening in Israel.